Coming up very shortly, Dave Lewis will talk more of Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page in particular, who we spoke to on this programme last night. But there is a link between this band and Led Zeppelin. I'll tell you what it is afterwards. 11:10, ABBA, Knowing Me, Knowing You. The link between them and Led Zeppelin is that ABBA have a studio called the Polar Studio in Stockholm, and that's where Zeppelin recorded In Through the Outdoor. So there you are. That's the link. In the meantime, last evening we spoke to Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin about the reissue programme. An acknowledged expert on the band is somebody called Dave Lewis, who we've spoken to on many times on this programme, the editor of the Tight But Loose fanzine. And so, as we heard on the programme last night, Jimmy Page talking about the reissue programme of the entire recorded catalogue of Led Zeppelin, arguably still, Dave Lewis of Tight But Loose, the biggest rock band on the planet.
Bigger than ever, I would say, Vic, actually, particularly after what we're going to get in the next few days and weeks. Yeah, I mean, the interest is fantastic, and this whole thing about reissued material. But it's not reissued, it's there's a companion audio disc with each of the albums that are coming out, and the first ones are Led Zeppelin 1, 2 and 3. And there's going to be unheard and is unheard material, outtakes, rough mixes, and by what I've heard so far, this really is going to be something special. And I think Led Zeppelin fans, the entire world over, are just going to have a whole feast for this. It really is fantastic stuff.
And it looks quality as well. I mean, obviously we haven't got the finished product yet, but it looks as though it's a quality product, not just a rehashed, bunged-out reissue thing.
No, I think, again, when you look at Zeppelin and look what's happened over the years with various bands and how they've reissued their material, Pink Floyd did a very good job, the Beatles, obviously. I think Zeppelin are one of the last bands, and certainly Jimmy Page, I think, has been aware of this, that have really gone into the archive and really dug some stuff out. This isn't just a bunch of outtakes that have been found in a bin somewhere. He went through countless reels, all the master tapes, to find something that was really going to be interesting. And I think the whole idea of the companion audio disc is to have a sort of snapshot of where the band were at that time. So you've got Led Zeppelin 2, you've got the album, we know and love it, we've loved it for years. We're going to love it all over again. But then you've got this separate disc, which has got the outtakes, and certainly one of the things we've heard, the alternate Whole Lotta Love, which tells a completely different story to the finished version. You haven't got the chorus, they're yet to mould the middle section. You're hearing the creative process of Led Zeppelin as it's being done. It was the first workings of it, and I think it's a fantastic thing to hear, and you just hear different nuances and different vocal lines, and I think it just adds a whole new atmosphere and texture to the track, and that's just one. There's a lot more to come.
It is a band, of course, right, which split up in 1980, sporadic appearances ever since, but 1980, we're 34 years on, and yet it can still make national and international news. It's extraordinary, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, it's about good music lasting, isn't it? And quality music. And I think there's something about a handful of bands, and Led Zeppelin are one of them, that has got this mystery, this mystique, this big attraction to know more. Fans want to hear and know more about what Led Zeppelin did between those years, and that fascination continues to grow. And obviously you've got a whole bunch of new generation of fans, people that weren't even born when they made Led Zeppelin 4 or whatever. So I think because of the quality of the material, and it does sound incredibly fresh. I mean, these albums, we all know where we were when we first heard them, when we first bought them, but we really are going to fall in love with them again. As I said earlier, there's something eternally timeless about this music, and there's very few acts, the Beatles, maybe the Stones, a few others, that have got this integral, lasting quality. And I think, again, this reissue programme is just going to start the ball rolling all over again. And we've already seen some of the, sort of reaction to what we've heard so far. And, they were on the BBC 1 o'clock news. That there isn't many bands after 34 years of not playing together in the format that we know that are going to be able to do that. So there is this eternal quality, and it's a special quality But I think every time they do something, it's done with such integrity, and I think Jimmy Page has got to be applauded massively for the way he's conducted this reissue programme. You know, he's done a lot of thinking about what can come of this and what he wants to achieve for Led Zeppelin fans. I think one of the things he said at one of the playbacks that were done was that people who understand Led Zeppelin will know why this works and what made them tick. And I think there is this chemistry there that you hear in the outtakes and in some of the material that we haven't heard that is even more to the forefront. There's a version of Gallows Pole, for instance, which on the finished version has got quite a lot of overdubs, banjo, mandolin. All you hear on this version is the four of them: bass, drums, acoustic guitar, vocal. And the synergy of the band is just all there. You can almost touch it, you know. So as you can hear, I'm very enthusiastic about this.
Yeah.
But I think it is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and what's lovely, I know you've spoken to Jimmy Page many times, but here is an example of his humour, I think.
Are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Jolly good,
Sorry
right.
to interrupt. If I
Okay.
could just ask you to be a strict 15, that would be great.
Yeah, no, that's
Thank you
fine.
very much.
Absolutely.
That's 15 seconds, by the way.
Thank you very much, Jimmy Page. It's been great talking to you. So there he is. I mean, he's a lovely chap, isn't he?
Well, you know, Jimmy's, I think, in a great place because, you know, Led Zeppelin haven't reformed. Despite after the O2, there was a lot of calls for that, and I know Jimmy would have been up for it. And the endless reunion rumours go on. They've all come out again during the period where this has all come about, and Robert Plant has said some comments, you know, and if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it. But I think Jimmy has still got this amazing capacity to be able to live the Led Zeppelin life that he wants to, and by working on this material for the last 2.5 years, he's able to still be in Led Zeppelin, really. And I think his pride with it all, you know, comes through, and the diligence that he's put into this, and then all the media interviews that he's done, and he's done loads, and he conducts himself so well.
Which is
But
a point
he
I made
genuinely
to him.
enjoys it.
It's a point I made to him during the interview with the fact that, you know, we've discussed this many times, whereas in the past all you got was the odd bit in Melody Maker or what have you, and the record. And we didn't have an insight into the group. Now, of course, it's totally changing, isn't it? We're getting that insight now. And
yeah.
You know, and he got that as well, because there was this mystique, this sort of wall around them, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it was very hard in the period where, you know, they were functioning to get information, which is one of the reasons that I did, you know, my magazine to try and keep fans up to date, because it was just what you read in the NME, you know, it was what you read in the Melody Maker. But this day and age, in this social media world, it doesn't work like that. And I think, again, he's been very clever in the way that he's worked that to get the word out there of what this is all about. You know, I don't think I can think of any musician that has gone to such pains to explain a concept and about a reissue program. You know, I don't think anyone has really ever done that, and I think that's so good for the fans, because I think they do get to understand what he's trying to do, and then when you're hearing the material, you understand what he's trying to achieve, and it just adds to the listening experience. And again, I use you know, the example of Whole Lot of Love, where you are hearing them build the sound, and it's almost like, you know, they knew they were onto something when they recorded that first version, you know, in April '69, but they didn't know quite what. And you're hearing them discover what, and then many months later, when it's finally mixed and it comes out, you're hearing, you know, a very different version. And again, one of the things that Jimmy Page has certainly said, these new versions aren't there to replace the ones that are already out. You know, they're to complement them and make you understand why they are so good anyway. So I think it just adds to the fascination, you know, of the whole Led Zeppelin thing, and also it just, you know, it just makes you smile. It just does, because you realise that they had it so right, and it still sounds so right after all those years.
We'll talk about the magazine in a moment. I just wanted to hear this. This is what I you know, obviously we'd like to see Jimmy Page be alive before again, wouldn't we? So this is what you had to say. Get on down to Devon and do a set for us down here, will you? That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I've got some good pals.
I know
in
you
Devon.
have. Yeah, I know. Knightsay's Court, I know, is a place you visited. Isn't it?
I've been there. Yeah.
So is that a
I've
possibility?
got friends in Oakhampton too.
Yeah,
but
fantastic. I mean, would that be a possibility? You might nip down here and do a set somewhere?
Well, yeah, when I'm up and running, what you have to understand is I haven't got a band together to play with at the moment, and, you know, I've been so focused on doing all of this other stuff properly that it goes without saying that once once I move into the thing of actually manifesting what music I've got playing live, the new music that I've had under my belt for a while, then I'm going to get a band, and then when I've got a band, I'll be out there playing, because, you know something, I'll have to be paying this band, so I better make the most of it, hadn't I?
So there you are. He wants to go back on the road, doesn't he, by the sound of it?
Well, you know, he's been a busy man. He had the Celebration Day thing, which again, you know, invested quite a lot of his time to get the film together, and all that followed with that. The reissues obviously taken up, you know, as I said, 2 years. I'm one of those that I've got a lot of faith in him, and I think he will play again. I know there's been a lot of talk. He's often said something's going to happen, and then it hasn't, and we're going, you know, back some, 10 years really now. He hasn't played regularly for so long. But I think these other things have been important to him, and there are things that he wanted to do, primarily, obviously, Led Zeppelin focus. But I think once the dust settles, and you've got to think that, you know, it is going to settle once the reissue program is up and running, I think it will give him the time to focus. I think I've got, as I said, quite a lot of faith that he will get it right and he will get out there. And when he gets out there, again, the whole fascination to see Jimmy Page live, well, he's just going to, you know, he's just going to blow it over and again, because people want to see him play live. And I think he's, if you look at some of his peers, if you look at Jeff Beck and the way he's conducted himself, you know, I think Jimmy could go out there and do whatever he liked. If he wanted to do 5 nights at the O2, he could. If he wanted to play blues clubs, he could. You know, the world's his oyster, really. And I think every fan is now, you know, awaiting that. I think because of what's happened with the Led Zeppelin reissue, because of what's happened with the fact that Led Zeppelin aren't going to reform, it isn't going to happen by the looks of it. He should be playing. You know, he still, I'm sure, has got all the skill to do that and the application. And by what we hear, he has logged an amount of material. You know, I think there's, creatively, the juices are there to flow again. And I'm pretty confident that he will. And again, that's a very exciting prospect, you know, in itself. So let's hope it happens sooner than later.
If you were the editor of a fanzine, it would be a pretty good time to get a new edition out, wouldn't it?
It would be, which is just as well, because my new issue is just out now.
Amazing.
I mean, yeah, I've been working on it all year, and obviously I was aware that the reissue program was going to kick off. So I did hold back, and there's some exclusive material in there. And again, the whole magazine, I think, is based around getting people into the Zepp zone and for them to enjoy this as much as they can, because this is a special time to be a Led Zeppelin fan. Again, you know, this reissue program is a significant moment, and fans need to savour it. They really do. And when these first 3 get released on June the 2nd, I've said, I think, in the mag, my advice is to lock yourself away and just breathe and live this material. It's almost like renewing your vows. You know, that's how I felt when I've been hearing some of this. You're falling in love with the whole thing again. You know, it's really tangible, and I think, again, fans the world over are just going to love it. I mean, as I said, it's a chance to, you know, really party like it's 1969 or 1970.
Yeah.
It's great.
Any nuggets that you can give us? I know, you know, obviously you want to keep some back, but are there any nuggets you can give us?
Well, in terms of the reissues, you know, the track that certainly I think is everyone's going to focus on is the first version of Since I've Been Loving You, which is on there. Jimmy spoke to me about this some time ago, and he said it's, you know, it's a real off-the-cuff version. It's the first time they really, you know, approached it, and there's so much fire in it, and you can, it's almost like them playing in your front room. Again, synergy is a word that I used before. The synergy of the 4 of them, you can feel that they're onto something, you know, and they refined it more, and then we get the finished version that came out on Led Zeppelin 3. But the version that you're hearing on the Led Zeppelin 3 companion disc, it's what the words Type the Loose were invented for, because that is exactly what it is. You know, they get it, and then it's loose. And Robert Plant is astounding on that as well. And again, you know, I think by 1970 he'd really found his feet and got a lot of confidence. I think in the early years he was feeling his way in, and you can just feel that they've got this chemistry and they're all as one. So when you hear that version, believe me, shivers down the spine. It really is, and it's something very special. And the fact that he's found it and, you know, really worked to make sure that people understand why it's there. It's not there to replace what's already there, but it does complement everything that's gone on, and it tells you more about why Led Zeppelin became so great. It really does.
It is. Somebody once said to me, well, they're not mainstream, are they? I mean, you wouldn't know if you walked down the street and asked people about it. It wouldn't have much of a difference. But to have sold between 200 and 300 million records and to get 20 million people applying for 18,000 tickets, that's pretty mainstream to my mind.
Yeah, it's a weird one, actually. It's a bit of a paradox, really, because I think during the time, they were together, somebody said they were the biggest unknown group, and I think it was quite a good way of summarising it, because I think as much as they didn't do singles, they didn't appear on TV, their audience was word of mouth, and it was about the quality of the material and obviously seeing them play live. In this modern era, you can see them on YouTube on countless clips. You can hear them on Spotify or whatever, or radio. It's very easy to find out about Led Zeppelin, and I think that's one of the things, again, that keeps it going and keeps it in the mainstream, because there is this attraction, and I think musically and the musicianship that was part of Zeppelin and is very evident on this, some of this new material, it draws people back, and it also influences young people to play. I think they are one of the bands that are quite a yardstick if you want to be a musician. You want to play like Jimmy Page, well, you need to listen to it. So I think that's why they are in the mainstream in a very bizarre way. And again, as I said, there's not many bands that could appear, on the BBC 1 o'clock news. And certainly when I've been going about my business in the last few days, the amount of people that have come up to me, your band have been on, haven't they? And it is, it does seep in the consciousness, I think. Zeppelin never goes away. I've said this many times, certainly when we've spoken, it's always in the present tense. The tribute bands, the reissues, the reunion, it just stretches out and has stretched out for 34 years since, they called it a day with John Bonham. And again, I think this material that's coming is going to draw people back, and they're going to understand why they fell in love with Zeppelin for the first time. That's how I felt. It really does put a spring in your step when you hear this stuff, because it's just so joyous. And again, that's a word I think I've used quite a few times, again, to let people understand what this is all about. And I think that, these 3 albums that are coming out on June the 2nd, which is just a start, is really going to bring them back into focus and into the mainstream, because that's what they do.
Well, Dave, a delight as always to speak to you. I will ask you that question in a strange way. You'll understand what that question is. Yes or no?
Oh, Vic, you're testing me. It's probably a no, because we're 7 years on. It's such the O2 was such a wonderful goodbye. I know there's always that, let's have one more go. Could they do Glastonbury? I can understand Robert's feelings about what he says. I can more than understand, what Jimmy wants and why he feels Led Zeppelin should still be out there. And I think we all in ourselves want one last blast, but there's always that temptation that if it happened and it wasn't as good, the legacy would be a little slightly tarnished, and I don't think anyone wants that. Everyone's getting older, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to see it, because of course I would, but I think the next best thing has been this reissue programme, which we've all waited for. And again, I think if people focus on that, Led Zeppelin are going to be back in their mindsight just as much as they would be if they got back together, And as I said, we've had a great goodbye visually and, on stage performance-wise. We've now got a fantastic goodbye, which is going to last for the next, year and a bit with these reissues. So I think we should all enjoy that, because, we say Led Zeppelin, is it in the present tense? Well, it always is. And again, I think when you hear this new material, everybody's going to understand why it means so much to so many people and has done for so many years.
Great to speak to you as always, Dave. Tight But Loose is out as we speak. If you want to go to the Tight But Loose website, full details are available. Dave Lewis, thank you.
Thank you. A pleasure.
David Lewis from the Tight But Loose fanzine, and, well, I say it's fanzine, it's much more than that. And great to talk to Dave, as always. We'll have this track. This is, I played a version of this last night, the complete version, as it is, on Led Zeppelin 2. This is the rough mix of A Whole Lot of Love.